"Can I have coffee with you?" He was cold, arrogant, feared. But the innocent question from a 6-year-old girl changed everything. What he replied, no one expected. And what happened next will surprise you. Comment from where you're watching us. Let's get to our story. Emily didn't know she was doing anything wrong. To her, that man in the suit sitting alone at the huge table just looked sad and lonely like the grandpa she saw in her mom's photos but who had passed away before she was born. "Can I have coffee with you?" she asked, her sweet little voice breaking the heavy silence of the dining room. Robert Villa looked up from his phone, shocked. A girl, about 6 years old, was standing next to the table with messy blonde hair and an excited smile on her face. She was holding a pink backpack with unicorn drawings. "How did you get in here?" he asked, his voice cold, cutting through the air. "Through the kitchen door," Emily replied, not understanding the threatening tone. "My mom works here. She said she was going to get some medicine for you, but I got hungry." Robert blinked. The housekeeper had a daughter. In 3 years, that woman had never mentioned anything about her personal life. He didn't even know her full name. "Does your mom know you're here?" Emily bit her lip. "She told me to wait in the pantry, but her blue eyes sparkled. I saw the carrot cake on the table, and you're alone. No one should have coffee alone." Robert was speechless, not out of anger, but from something he couldn't name. When was the last time someone cared if he was alone? "Come on in," he said, surprising himself. Emily's eyes widened. "Really?" "Before I change my mind." The girl dropped her backpack on the floor and climbed onto the chair next to him, her little feet swinging without reaching the ground. She looked at the table full of breads, cakes, fruits, and juices as if it were a king's banquet. "Wow," she whispered. "Is it always like this? Always like this? How so much food just for you?" Robert looked at the abundant table that the cook prepared every day. He barely touched anything. He ate 2 pieces of bread, drank black coffee, and ignored the rest. "Yes," he replied dryly. "Always like this." Emily grabbed a piece of cake with her hands without waiting for him to offer. She bit into it and closed her eyes, savoring. "It's so good," she said with her mouth full. "Did your wife make it?" "I don't have a wife." "Your mom?" "No." "Then who made it, though? The cook?" "Ah," Emily thought for a moment, chewing. "My mom makes cake sometimes, but it's not as fluffy. We don't have a mixer." Robert didn't know why he was still there listening to that child chatter. He had meetings, calls to make, contracts to review. But something in her unpretentious way, how she ate, how she smiled, how she looked at him without fear or reverence, kept him glued to that chair. "You live far away?" he asked. Not understanding why he cared. "In the neighborhood across the avenue in a small apartment, but it's cool. My mom says one day we'll have a house with a backyard." "And your dad?" Emily's smile faltered for the first time. "I don't have a dad. I mean, everyone has a dad, right? But mine left before I was born. My mom says he wasn't ready to be a dad." Her voice was casual, but Robert saw the hidden sadness in her blue eyes, a sadness that a 6-year-old shouldn't know. "I understand," he murmured. "Do you have kids?" The question hit him like a punch in the stomach. He had had a daughter, Isabella, who died in a car accident along with her mother 3 years ago. The pain was still so fresh that he avoided thinking about it. He avoided feeling anything. No, he lied, his voice coming out harsher than intended. "I don't have kids." Emily tilted her head, studying him with that strange intensity of children who see things adults hide. "You're alone too, aren't you?" she said softly, "just like me." Before Robert could respond, the dining room door burst open and Laura rushed in, her face pale with panic. "Emily!" She almost shouted, then controlled herself when she saw her boss. "Mr. Villa, I'm so sorry. I didn't." She stopped breathless, seeing the impossible scene in front of her. Her daughter sitting at the millionaire's table eating cake calmly. Well, he didn't look furious, he just looked tired. "Laura," Robert said, and it was the first time in 3 years he used her name. "Your daughter asked if she could have coffee with me." Laura went white. "Sir, I swear it wasn't intentional. She escaped from the pantry and I said yes." The silence that followed was absolute. Laura blinked, confused. "You said yes. She's 6 and she was hungry." He stood up, grabbing his suit jacket from the back of the chair. "I'm not a monster." But his eyes said something else. They said he had seen something in that girl that had completely disarmed him. "Finish your cake," he said to Emily. his voice softening in a way he didn't recognize. "And next time, ask your mom to bring you through the front door." Emily smiled a huge smile that lit up the whole room. "Can I come back then?" Robert looked at Laura, who was paralyzed, then back at the girl. Those blue eyes full of hope cracked something inside him. "You can," he said, and left the room before anyone saw the emotion crossing his face. Laura collapsed into a chair, her legs shaky. "What did you do, Emily?" "I just asked if I could have coffee with him, Mom." Emily replied innocently, licking her fingers sticky with frosting. He was so alone. Laura looked at the door where her boss had left. For the first time in 3 years, she had seen something beyond coldness in those brown eyes. She had seen pain, the same pain she carried, and somehow her daughter had touched it. "You can't do that again," Laura said, but her voice lacked conviction. But he said, "I can come back." Emily argued through the front door. Laura sighed. She had a bad feeling about this. Bosses don't invite housekeepers' daughters for coffee. They don't change their minds out of nowhere. Something had happened in that room. Something she didn't understand yet and was afraid to find out. Laura spent the rest of the morning on alert, waiting for Robert to go back on it to yell to fire her, but he didn't appear, locked himself in the office, and didn't even come out for lunch. Emily stayed in the kitchen drawing in an old notebook while Laura worked. "Mom, can I take a drawing to the coffee man?" she asked at 3 p.m., showing a paper full of colorful flowers and a smiling stick figure. "No, Em, he's busy." "But I drew him here, look." Emily pointed to the stick figure. "He was sad this morning. Now I drew him happy." Laura's heart tightened. Her daughter had a dangerous gift seeing pain where others saw only indifference. "Keep the drawing, sweetie. Another day, you can give it to him." Emily pouted, but obeyed. Laura went back to polishing the silver, her hands working on autopilot while her mind spun. Why had he let Emily sit at the table? Why hadn't he yelled? Why hadn't he been the cold, distant man as always? The answer came in the form of a sound, a muffled cry coming from the office. Laura dropped the cloth and walked slowly to the closed door. She pressed her ear against the dark wood. Robert was sobbing on the other side, a contained, desperate cry that he thought no one heard. She backed away quickly, her heart racing. She had never heard that man show emotion, not when he came home drunk at dawn, not when he broke things in the office. Never. What had Emily done? That night, when Laura left with her daughter through the back door, she found a white envelope on the kitchen counter. Her name was written on it in Robert's firm handwriting. She opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was money, a lot of money, and a short note, to buy a mixer and whatever else you need. RV. Laura looked at Emily, who was yawning sleepily, holding her hand. The girl had mentioned the mixer that morning in the conversation with him. He had heard he had cared. Tears burned her eyes, but she held them back. She put the money in her bag and left her mind confused with emotions she couldn't name. The next morning, Laura arrived at 6, as always, prepared the coffee, set up the dining room, laid the table. She expected everything to go back to normal, that the strange moment from the day before would be forgotten. But when Robert came down at 7, he didn't go straight to the office. He sat at the table, looked at the empty chair next to his, and asked, "Isn't your daughter coming today?" Laura almost dropped the juice pitcher. "Sir, the girl, Emily." He avoided her eyes. "Is she at school?" "Yes, sir. She starts at 7:30. He nodded, a shadow of disappointment crossing his face. He picked up a toast and started eating mechanically. Laura stood there not knowing what to do. He wanted to see Emily again. "Why, Mr. Villa?" She started cautiously. "About yesterday and about the money. You don't need to pay it back. It's that I don't understand why you did that." Robert finally looked at her. His eyes were red tired, but there was something different in them, a vulnerability that hadn't existed before. "She reminded me of someone," he said simply. "Who?" He looked away, his jaw tense. "Someone I lost." Laura didn't press. She recognized the tone of someone carrying grief. She used it herself when Emily asked about her dad. "She can come tomorrow," Laura offered softly, "if you want. On Saturdays she doesn't have school." Robert's eyes lit up for a fraction of a second before he controlled himself. "If it doesn't bother your work, it won't bother." He nodded and went back to eating, but Laura saw his hands tremble slightly as he held the cup. On Saturday, Emily arrived excited, wearing her best dress, a faded yellow one that Laura had sewn by hand. She was holding the drawing she had made. Robert was already in the dining room waiting. He had told the cook to prepare pancakes, fruits cut into star shapes, and hot chocolate with marshmallows. "Good morning." Emily bounced in full of joy. "I brought a drawing for you." She held out the paper. Robert took it carefully as if it were made of crystal. He studied the drawing in silence. The smiling stick figure, the flowers around it, the yellow sun in the corner. "Is that me?" he asked, his voice strangely hoarse. "Yeah, I drew you happy because you deserve to be happy." Something broke inside him. Laura saw it happen. She saw the cold, distant man shatter before her daughter's innocent eyes. "Thank you," he whispered. "No one ever. Thank you." Emily smiled and climbed onto the chair next to him, already grabbing a pancake. "Wow, there's hot chocolate, Mom. Look, real hot chocolate." Laura watched from the kitchen door, unable to move. Robert wasn't eating, just watching Emily with an intensity that scared and moved her at the same time. "Do you like to draw?" he asked. "I love it, but my colored pencils are running out. I only have 4 colors now. What colors do you have? Red, blue, yellow, and green." Emily made a face. "I wish I had pink. Pink is my favorite color. Why pink? Because it's the color of princesses and pretty flowers and unicorns." Robert almost smiled. Almost. "What if I get you new colored pencils?" He offered a full box with pink and all the other colors. Emily's eyes widened. "Really? But it's expensive." "No, it's not. My mom says we can't ask for things from others." "You didn't ask," I offered. He looked at Laura, who was tense. "Does your mom allow it?" Laura wanted to say no. She wanted to protect her daughter from the strange situation from this rich man who suddenly showed interest in a child who was nothing to him, but she saw the hope in Emily's eyes and couldn't deny it. "If you insist, I insist." Emily jumped from the chair and before anyone could stop her, hugged Robert around the waist. He froze completely still as if he had forgotten how to hug someone. His hands hovered in the air for long seconds, not knowing where to land. Then slowly, he placed them on the girl's back, closed his eyes, and for the first time in 3 years, Robert Villa allowed himself to feel something beyond pain. When Emily let go, he cleared his throat quickly and returned to his cold mask. But Laura had seen it, had seen the tears he held back. "Finish your breakfast," he said to Emily, his voice shaky. "I need to make some calls." He left hurriedly, but not to the office, to the hallway bathroom where he stayed for 15 minutes with the faucet running so no one would hear his cry. Laura sat at the table with Emily, her heart heavy with worry. "Em, do you like him?" "I do. He's nice. He just seems sad inside. What if I ask you not to get too attached?" Emily looked at her with those blue eyes full of impossible wisdom. "Mom, he needs friends. He's so alone in that huge house. He's my boss. Em, not our friend. Why can't he be both?" Laura had no answer for that. The following weeks established a strange routine. Every Saturday, Emily went with Laura to the mansion, had breakfast with Robert. They talked, or rather, Emily talked, and he listened, asking occasional questions. He bought the colored pencils, then drawing paper, then paints, a doll, books, a winter coat, when he saw Emily shivering. Laura tried to refuse, but he wouldn't take no for an answer. "She needs these things," he would say, his voice firm, "and I can buy them. But Mr. Robert," he surprised her. "You can call me Robert, at least when no one's here." Laura swallowed hard. The implied intimacy in that request scared her. "It wouldn't be appropriate, sir." "Why not?" "Because I work for you. There are rules. Boundaries." He studied her for a long moment. "What if I don't want those boundaries anymore?" Laura's heart raced. "What are you saying?" But before he could answer, Emily came running into the kitchen holding a new drawing. "Robert, look. I drew your house." He knelt down to her level, smiling. A genuine smile that Laura had never seen before. "It looks beautiful, but you know what's missing." "What you?" He pointed to the drawing. "Draw yourself here in front, playing in the yard. But I don't live here." "What if you did?" The world stopped. Laura looked at him incredulously. Emily blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" Robert looked at Laura over Emily's head. His eyes said things his mouth couldn't. "It's just a thought," he murmured. But it wasn't, and everyone in the kitchen knew it. Laura couldn't sleep that night. Robert's words echoed in her mind. "What if you lived here?" It was madness. Dangerous, inappropriate. She was the housekeeper, he the millionaire boss. There were lines that shouldn't be crossed, worlds that didn't mix, but Emily had crossed those lines without even noticing and was dragging Robert along with her. On Monday, when Laura arrived for work, she found Robert in the kitchen at 6 a.m. He never woke up that early. "Good morning," he said, awkwardly holding a cup of coffee he had made himself. The liquid was too black, probably bitter. "Good morning, Mr. Robert," he corrected softly. Laura pretended not to hear and started preparing breakfast. He stayed there, watching in silence. His presence made the air heavy, loaded with unspoken things. "About Saturday," he began. "I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable." "You didn't." "Laura, look at me." She stopped cutting fruits but didn't turn around. "Please," he insisted. She took a deep breath and faced him. Robert looked different. The impeccable suit was there, but his eyes had a new softness, a vulnerability he no longer hid. "I don't know what's happening to me," he admitted. "Since Emily walked into that room and asked if she could have coffee with me, He ran his hand through his hair. Something changed. "I changed, sir. My daughter was named Isabella. She was 4 when she died." The words came out fast, as if he needed to get them out before regretting it. "Car, accident, her, and my wife. 3 years ago." Laura felt the air leave her. She finally understood. The empty house, the obsessive work, the coldness. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I stopped living that day." He looked at his own hands. Worked 20 hours a day not to think, not to feel. Turned this house into a tomb and myself into a ghost, Mr. Villa, Robert, he insisted more firmly. "Please, I need you to see me as a person, not as a boss. Just for a moment." Laura nodded slowly, her heart racing. "Your daughter reminded me what it's like to be alive," he continued. "Her innocence, her joy, the way she asked if she could sit with me as if it were the most natural thing in the world, as if I weren't this bitter, closed-off man that everyone avoids. Emily has that gift," Laura said softly. "She doesn't see barriers, she just sees people. She's special, I know. And you." He took a step forward. "You raised this incredible girl alone. You work as hard as I do, but you haven't lost your humanity. How do you do it?" Laura smiled sadly. "Because I have a reason to wake up every day. Emily is my light. Without her, I'd be a ghost too." Robert studied her in silence. For the first time, he really saw her. Not the housekeeper in the blue uniform who cleaned his house, but the 28-year-old woman with tired brown eyes and calloused hands from hard work. The woman who smiled at her daughter even when exhausted, who sewed dresses by hand because she couldn't afford to buy them. "I want to help you," he said. "Both of you, not out of charity, but because you make me want to be better. Sir, we don't need." "You do." He pointed to her uniform. "You work 12 hours a day, 6 days a week for a salary that barely pays the rent. Emily deserves more. You deserve more. I don't want your pity. It's not pity. It's—" He searched for the words. "Gratitude. You gave me back something I thought I'd lost forever." Before Laura could respond, the doorbell rang. She frowned. 7 a.m. Who could it be? Robert went to the door, irritated by the interruption. He came back minutes later with a somber expression, followed by an elegant woman in her 50s, all in black with expensive jewelry and an icy gaze. "Laura, can you give us a moment?" Robert said tensely. "No need," the woman said, her aristocratic voice cutting the air. "She needs to hear this too. After all, it's about her and her daughter that I came to talk." Laura froze. "Mom, don't start," Robert warned. "Mom." That was Helen Villa, the family matriarch. Laura had never seen her in person, only in Society magazine photos. "Don't start." Helen let out a humorless laugh. "My driver tells me you've been having a child here on Saturdays, a girl, the housekeeper's daughter. So what? What's causing talk, Robert?" Helen looked at Laura with disdain. "People are commenting, saying you're different, softer, that you're getting attached to a child who's not yours. That's no one's business. It is when it affects the family name." Helen's voice rose. "You forgot who you are," forgot Isabella so quickly Robert went white with rage. "Don't you dare say her name. Someone has to. You're replacing your own daughter with some nobody." "Careful," he hissed, dangerously calm. "Be very careful what you say next." Helen turned to Laura, who was paralyzed. How much do you want?" What Laura could barely speak. "How much money do you want to leave here and take your daughter to stop manipulating my son? I'm not manipulating anyone." Helen took a step forward. "Your daughter conveniently shows up all cute and needy at the exact moment my son is vulnerable. You think I'm stupid, Mom, enough." Robert placed himself between the two. Laura didn't do anything wrong. Of course she did. She saw an opportunity and grabbed it. Women like her always do. Laura felt tears burn, but she didn't let them fall. She straightened her shoulders. "You don't know me. You don't know my daughter. You know nothing about us. I know everything I need to know. You're the help. Your place isn't at the dinner table with my son. Your place is in the kitchen. Get out of my house." Robert said, his voice low and deadly. "Now." Helen blinked, surprised. "What? You heard me. Get out before I throw you out. Robert, you're making a mistake. The mistake was opening the door for you." He pointed to the exit. "Go away, Mom, and don't come back until you learn to respect the people I choose to have in my life." Helen looked from one to the other incredulously, then grabbed her purse with a brusque movement. "You'll regret this," she said. "When this woman uses you and destroys you, you'll see I was right. Bye, Mom." Helen left, slamming the door. The silence left behind was deafening. Laura leaned on the counter, trembling. I need to go," she whispered. "No, sir, your mom is right. This is wrong. I can't. She's not right." Robert approached. "She's afraid. Afraid I'll find happiness outside her world, outside her rules. But people will talk. Let them talk." He took Laura's hands, a bold gesture that made her gasp. "I spent 3 years not feeling anything, not living. Emily showed me there's still joy in the world. And you?" He looked into her eyes. "You show me there's still goodness, strength, dignity. I'm just the housekeeper. You're so much more than that. You're an incredible mom, a tireless worker, a woman who doesn't bend in the face of adversity." His hands squeezed hers. "And I won't let my mom or anyone else make you believe you're less than that." Laura felt the tears finally fall. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Scared of losing my job. Scared of what's happening here. Scared that Emily will get too attached. And then what? Then you get tired of us, go back to being the cold man from before, and my daughter ends up heartbroken." Robert let go of her hands and stepped back, pain evident on his face. "You think I'd do that? I don't know what you'd do. I don't know you, so let me show you who I am." He held her gaze. "Give me a chance to prove this isn't a whim, that I won't abandon you." "How?" Robert took a deep breath as if about to jump off a cliff. "Saturday is Emily's birthday, right?" Laura blinked, surprised he knew. "Yeah." She mentioned it. "Said she's turning 7. He smiled faintly. "Let me throw a party for her here with everything she deserves." "Sir, that's too much. It's the least." His eyes pleaded. "Please let me do this for her, for you too." Laura knew she should say no, knew that every step in that direction was dangerous, that she was entering unknown territory where she could lose everything. But she looked at Robert, not the boss, but the broken man her daughter had started to heal, and couldn't refuse. "Okay," she whispered. "But nothing too extravagant. Emily isn't used to it. It'll be perfect, I promise." He smiled, a real smile that lit up his whole face, and Laura realized with a squeeze in her heart that she was starting to see Robert Villa not as the cold, distant businessman, but as the lonely, hurt man behind the mask. That was more dangerous than anything. Robert didn't throw a party, he threw a spectacle. When Laura arrived on Saturday with Emily, she found the backyard transformed into a wonderland. Pink and gold balloons floated tied to decorated arches. A long table was loaded with sweets, cakes, and snacks. There was a bounce house, a ball pit, and in the center of it all a small stage where a woman dressed as a princess waited. "Mom." Emily let go of her hand and ran her eyes wide with enchantment. "Is this real? Is all this for me?" Robert came out of the house wearing jeans and a casual shirt. Laura had never seen him without a suit. He looked younger like that, almost vulnerable. "Happy birthday, Em," he said, kneeling to the girl's level. Emily hugged him tightly, laughing. "It's the best birthday of my life." Over the girl's head, Robert looked at Laura. His eyes asked, "Did I overdo it?" She smiled, even with the knot in her throat. Yes, he had overdone it, but Emily's happiness was worth any excess. The party was magical. Emily played in the bounce house, got a performance from the princess, blew out candles on a 3-tier cake decorated with unicorns. Robert participated in everything. jumped in the bounce house, painted his face with her, even let Emily put a silly tiara on his head. Laura watched from afar, her heart tight. That man, laughing with her daughter, playing without caring about dignity, was a stranger. The cold, distant Robert had disappeared completely, and that scared her as much as it enchanted her. "Is she happy?" a voice said beside her. Laura turned and found a woman in her 35s, elegant but friendly, holding a glass of champagne. "Sorry, I'm Beatrice." She introduced herself. Robert's sister-in-law, or ex-sister-in-law, technically married to his brother. "Laura," she replied tensely. "More? Villa, family, more problems. Relax." Beatrice smiled. "I'm not like Helen. I came because Robert called me personally and asked. Said it was important. Important. He never asks anyone for anything. So when he called saying he needed me here to meet someone special, she looked from Laura to Emily. I had to come see for myself." "See what?" "The miracle." Beatrice took a sip of champagne. "That man there playing and laughing? I haven't seen that in 3 years since he lost Isabella and Camilla." Laura swallowed hard at hearing the names. "He told you?" Beatrice asked softly. "He did. About the accident. It was horrible. Robert blamed himself. Said if he'd gone with them, if he'd driven instead of Camilla maybe." She shook her head. "He buried himself alive in work. Rejected everyone. Family friends turned into an empty shell." "I know," Laura murmured. "I've worked for him for 3 years." "So you've seen the before and after." Beatrice stared at her. "Your daughter did something none of us could. She brought him back. She was just being herself. Emily has no malice, doesn't know social barriers, saw a lonely man and wanted to keep him company. And he fell in love with her. Not in the wrong way," Beatrice hurried to clarify, "but like a father falls in love, like someone who found a reason to live again." Laura looked at Robert, who was now carrying Emily on his back, running around the yard while she screamed with joy. "That scares me," she admitted, "because one day this fantasy will end, and when it does, my daughter will suffer." "You think it's a fantasy?" "What else would it be? He's a millionaire. We live in a tiny apartment. We come from different worlds. My ex-husband thought like that," Beatrice said, obsessed with class status. "What was appropriate? Know where that led our marriage? To divorce." She sighed. "I learned that happiness has no social class. It exists or it doesn't. Period. But people will talk, they always do." Beatrice shrugged. "Helen's already spreading poison, saying you're a gold digger, that your daughter is manipulative. It's ridiculous, but that's what she does. Controls through fear and shame. Maybe she has a point. Maybe I should keep my distance." "Do you want to keep your distance?" Laura opened her mouth but couldn't lie. "No," she whispered. "God forgive me, but no." "For the first time in years, I feel something beyond tiredness, something beyond survival." Beatrice smiled. "Then don't let Helen's fear or anyone else's steal that from you." The party stretched into the evening. When the decorators started packing up, Emily was exhausted, asleep on Robert's lap on the living room couch. Laura entered and stopped capturing the scene. He was stroking the girl's hair with a tenderness that broke her heart, his eyes fixed on her angelic face. "She's asleep," Laura said softly. "Sorry, I think I overdid the party. She must be wiped out. Is she happy? It's different." Laura approached. "Thank you for all this. She'll never forget it. Neither will I." Robert looked at her, and there was something new in his eyes, something intense and scary. "Laura, I need to tell you something." "What?" He hesitated, clearly struggling with the words. "I know this is crazy. I know it happened too fast, but He breathed deeply. "I can't pretend anymore that you're just the housekeeper and her daughter to me. You've become more, much more." Laura's heart raced. "Mr. Villa Robert," he insisted. "Please, just Robert." "Robert," she repeated, her voice trembling. "You're confusing gratitude with something else? Emily reminded you of your daughter. It's natural that no." He placed Emily gently on the couch, covering her with a blanket. Then he stood and walked to Laura. "At first it was that, but now, when I see her, I don't see Isabella. I see Emily, an incredible girl who's special in her own right. And when I see you," he stopped very close to her, so close, Laura felt his warmth. "When I see you, I see strength, dignity, a woman who fights every day for her daughter, who never gives up, who smiles even when tired, a woman who makes me want to be better, who makes me want to wake up in the morning." "Stop." "Laura, whispered tears in her eyes. Please stop. Why? Because I can't. We can't. She looked at Emily. My daughter is already too attached. If this is a phase, if you wake up one day and realize it was a mistake, she'll be destroyed. And you, he asked softly, would you be destroyed too? Laura didn't answer. She didn't need to. The answer was written on her face. Robert reached out and gently wiped a tear that ran down her cheek. I won't wake up and change my mind, he promised. This isn't a phase, isn't an illusion. For the first time in 3 years I feel alive, and it's because of you two. People will judge us. Your family, screw people. Screw my family. His voice was firm, determined. I lost 3 years of my life living to please expectations, following rules that didn't make me happy. I won't lose more time. What if I say I'm scared that this is too big too fast? Then we go slow. He held her hands, but don't ask me to pretend I don't feel what I feel. Don't ask me to go back to being that cold, dead man inside. Laura looked at his hands holding hers. Hands that had never done hard labor but now trembled with real emotion. Then she looked at Emily sleeping peacefully on the couch, a soft smile on her lips. Her daughter deserved a father figure. Deserved someone who looked at her with the affection Robert showed. And Laura. God. Laura deserved to be looked at. Like he looked at her now, as if she mattered, as if she was more than a housekeeper, more than an obligation. I'm scared, too, she admitted. But I don't want you to stop. I don't want you to go back to being that man. The smile that lit up Robert's face could warm the whole winter. Then stay, he asked. You two, not as housekeeper, as family. Family, I know it's early to talk about that, but I don't want you working for me anymore. I want you to live here, for Emily to have her own room, toys, everything she deserves. I want... The front door burst open. Helen Villa entered like a hurricane, followed by 2 men in suits. Her face was red with rage. I warned you, she spat. I warned you that you were making a mistake, but you didn't listen. Mom, get out of here, Robert said, placing himself in front of Laura. No, I won't leave. I came here to stop you from destroying everything our family built. She pointed at Laura. You think I don't know what's going on? Think I don't have eyes. I don't care what you know. You should care. Helen took a step forward because I brought lawyers, and we're going to settle this the civilized way. Settle what? She's going to get a generous check and an excellent reference letter. In exchange, she'll leave and never come back. Never contact you again. Laura's blood ran cold. You can't buy me. Everyone has a price, Helen said coldly, and we found yours. $500,000 more than you'd earn in 20 years working. Robert went white with rage. You have no right. I have every right. I'm your mother and majority shareholder in the family companies. And if you continue this madness, I'll call an extraordinary meeting and remove you from the presidency. You wouldn't do that. Watch me. Helen's eyes were steel. Either you end this situation or I end your career. You choose. The silence that fell was suffocating. Emily stirred on the couch, still sleeping, oblivious to the nightmare unfolding around her. Robert looked from his mother to Laura. His face was a mask of anguish. Give me some time, he said to Helen. A few days to think. You have until Monday, Helen replied. After that, I called a meeting. She left with the lawyers, leaving a chilling void behind. Laura picked up Emily, carefully avoiding looking at Robert. I need to go, she whispered. Laura, no. She finally faced him, tears streaming freely. Your mom is right. This went too far. I'll resign on Monday. Don't do that. We can fight. Fight what your whole family. The whole world. She hugged Emily tighter. I can't risk everything I built for an impossible dream. It's not impossible. It is. It always was. She walked to the door, her heart shattered. Thanks for the party. Emily will never forget. Neither will I. Laura, wait. But she didn't wait. She left through the door carrying her sleeping daughter and leaving behind the man who for a few magical weeks had made her believe fairy tales could be real. Robert stood in the empty room surrounded by wilted balloons and party remnants, feeling the world crumble around him for the second time in 3 years. And this time, he knew exactly what he had lost. Laura didn't show up on Monday nor Tuesday. On Wednesday, Robert received a resignation letter delivered by mail, formal and cold, with no personal words. He crumpled the paper and threw it into the fireplace, watching it burn. Then he grabbed his car keys. The neighborhood where Laura lived was across the avenue, a brutal contrast to his mansion. Small houses, narrow streets, kids playing barefoot. Robert had never set foot there but found the address easily. He knocked on the door of the small apartment at the back of the lot. No one answered. "She's not here," an elderly neighbor said from the next window. "She left early with the girl for the hospital, I think." Robert's heart raced. Hospital? What happened? The little one's sick. High fever since yesterday. He ran back to the car, found them at the public emergency room in the crowded waiting area. Emily was pale in Laura's lap, shivering, even wrapped in 2 blankets. Laura's face was marked with tiredness and worry. "Laura," he called, breathless. She looked up, surprised and scared. "What are you doing here? I came to see you and heard Emily's sick." He knelt in front of them. What happened? Fever of 104 degrees. Laura held her daughter close. "I've been waiting 3 hours to see a doctor." Robert looked around the overcrowded room, people moaning in pain in the hallways. The only doctor visibly overwhelmed. His jaw hardened. "Come with me," he ordered. "Robert, now Laura." He was already picking up Emily. The girl opened her eyes briefly, murmured Robert, and fainted again. "My car's out front. I'll take you to the private hospital. I don't have money for I do. Let's go." Laura hesitated only a second before following him. Emily's health came before pride. At the private hospital, everything happened fast. Pediatrician tests, private room. 2 hours later, they had the diagnosis pneumonia serious but treatable with antibiotics and hospitalization. Emily slept in the bed connected to IVs, finally resting. Laura sat beside her, holding her little hand. Silent tears streaming. "I should have noticed sooner," she whispered. "She complained of chest pain yesterday, but I thought it was just the flu. I should have." "You did the best you could," Robert said, sitting on the other side of the bed. "Don't blame yourself. If you hadn't shown up, we'd still be waiting. And if she got worse, but she didn't. She's going to be fine." Laura looked at him through tears. "Why did you do this after everything?" "Because I love you both," he said simply. "The 2 of you." The silence that followed was loaded with emotion. "Robert, you can't love us just like that. This isn't love. There's no timeline, Laura. No manual." He looked at Emily. "This girl walked into my life and showed me there's still light in the world. And you showed me there's still hope that I can start over, that I deserve to start over. But your mom, your family, I talked to them." He sighed. "It was a war, I won't lie. My mom threatened, yelled, called me crazy, but in the end I said something I'd never said before. What? No." He smiled faintly. Simply, no. "I'm not giving up my happiness out of fear of what they'll think. I'm not letting you 2 go because she decided you're not good enough. And the company, she called the meeting anyway, yesterday." Robert shrugged. "Beatrice voted with me and 2 other shareholders too. My mom lost." Laura blinked. "Incredulous, you risked everything." "I didn't risk anything because without you I had nothing anyway, just an empty house and a dead heart." He reached across the bed, touching her face. "You gave me back my life, Laura. Let me be part of yours too." "I'm so scared," she confessed. "Scared to believe in this and then lose everything, then we be scared together." He smiled, "But at least we're not alone." Emily stirred in the bed, opening her eyes slowly. "Mom," she murmured, her voice weak. "I'm here, love. Is Robert here too?" "Yes, I am," he replied, taking her other little hand. "And I'm not going anywhere." Emily smiled, her eyes already closing again. "Good, because I dreamed you left and I got sad. I'm not leaving ever," he promised. His voice choked. "Real promise." "Can you be my dad?" she asked sleepily. "Not for real, because my dad left, but from the heart." Robert looked at Laura, who was holding back tears. She nodded slowly. "I can, little one," he whispered. "It would be an honor. So now we're family." Emily murmured, already almost asleep. "You mean my mom?" Robert looked at Laura, his eyes asking a silent question. She took a deep breath, letting the fear go, and smiled through tears. "Yes, my love," Laura replied. "Now we're family." And there, in that hospital room surrounded by the beeps of machines and the soft light of dawn, 3 lonely hearts finally found their place in the world together. Emily was discharged 3 days later, more excited than ever, telling all the nurses she now had a dad from the heart. Laura watched embarrassed while her daughter showed the drawings Robert had brought every day, colored pencils, notebooks, even a tablet for her to watch cartoons. She didn't have all this before Laura murmured while packing things in the room, and now she does. Robert replied naturally, as if spending fortunes on gifts was the most normal thing. Get used to it, because there'll be much more. Robert, we need to talk about this. You can't just, yes, I can. He smiled. I'm rich, remember? Let me use my money for something that really matters. Laura sighed. It was a battle she knew she'd lose. On the way home, Emily started asking questions from the back seat. Robert, are we going to live with you now? He looked at Laura, waiting for her to answer. She bit her lip, uncertain. It's complicated. Why is it complicated? The child logic was relentless. If we're family lives together, right? Your mom has reason to be cautious, Robert said. Things happened fast. We can go slow, but I want to live in the castle. Emily pouted. It has a huge yard and a room just for me, you said. Yes, I did. And the offer still stands when your mom is ready. Laura looked out the window, her heart tight. Going back to the tiny apartment after seeing how life could be seemed impossible, but accepting everything Robert offered scared her too. What if it doesn't work out? She asked softly. What if in a few months you realize it was a mistake? It won't be a mistake, Wishes, he replied with conviction. But if it makes you feel better, we make a deal. What kind of deal? You move in, but you don't depend financially on me. Keep working if you want, or study, take a course, whatever you've always wanted to do. He looked at her. I want you to stay because you want to, not because you need to. I've always wanted to finish high school, Laura admitted. I stopped when I got pregnant with Emily, but never had time to go back. Then go back now. There are night classes and lots of options. Robert smiled. And who knows after that a college? College? Laura let out a humorless laugh. That's too big a dream. No dream is too big. Emily clapped from the back seat. Mom, go study and I'll help you with homework. They laughed, and for the first time in days, Laura felt something beyond fear. She felt hope. The move happened the following weekend. Laura didn't have much. Some clothes, old books, photos in cheap frames, everything fit in 4 boxes. Is that all? Robert asked, surprised, looking at the boxes in the trunk. We never had much. Laura replied without bitterness. It was just a fact, but it was always enough. He pulled her into an unexpected hug. Now, you'll have everything you deserve, I promise. At the mansion, Emily ran from room to room, amazed. Robert had prepared a room for her. Walls painted light pink, a bed with a princess canopy, shelves full of books and toys. Mom, come see, there's a giant dollhouse, Emily shouted from the hallway. Laura entered the room and her vision blurred with tears. It was the room every girl dreamed of, everything she could never give her daughter. Thank you, she whispered to Robert, who was leaning on the door, for making her so happy. I want to make you both happy every day. He showed Laura's room, actually a huge suite with a walk-in closet and jacuzzi tub. She stood paralyzed. This is bigger than my old apartment entirely. It's yours, now your space. He hesitated. It's in the same hallway as my room, but if you prefer something farther, no. She held his hand. Here is perfect. They looked at each other for a long moment, the tension palpable between them. Robert approached slowly, giving her time to back away. She didn't back away. Can I? He whispered. Yes. The kiss was soft, almost hesitant, as if both had forgotten how. But then Laura melted against him, her arms around his neck, and Robert held her as if she were the most precious thing in the world. You! Emily appeared at the door. Are you kissing? They separated, laughing faces flushed. Sorry, little one, Robert said, not looking sorry at all. It's okay. Emily shrugged. At school, the teacher said when people really like each other, they kiss. Do you really like each other? Laura looked at Robert and he at her. Yes, they answered together. A lot. Emily smiled, satisfied. Great, now come see my dollhouse. The first weeks were an adjustment period. Emily adjusted quickly. After all, for her, everything was an adventure. Laura took longer still, catching herself waking at 5 a.m., out of habit, still finding it strange to be served instead of serving. Robert had infinite patience. When she tried to clean the house, he held her hands. There are people paid for that. You're not the housekeeper here anymore. I know, but it's hard not to do anything. Then don't do anything work-related. Do something for yourself. Read a book, take a long bath, play with Emily. Live Laura. She enrolled in night school. 3 times a week she went to class while Robert stayed with Emily. Seeing him help her daughter with homework play dolls, read bedtime stories made Laura's heart overflow. But not everything was roses. Helen Villa didn't give up. She showed up unannounced, always with some venomous criticism. Her presence made the house tense, Emily quiet and scared. "How long will this last?" Helen asked one afternoon, finding Laura in the kitchen. "This happy family fantasy?" "It's not a fantasy," Laura replied, keeping her voice firm even with her heart racing. "Of course it is. You think my son really loves you?" Helen laughed cruelly. "You're convenient. A cheap replacement for what he lost. When he gets tired, when reality hits, you'll go back to your place. Her place is here," Robert said from the door, his voice icy. "And I've already warned you, Mom. Respect Laura or don't come back. She's bewitched you," Helen spat. "I can't understand how you don't see. The only spell here is the one you cast for years, making me believe I had to live by your rules." Robert approached, "But I woke up and I'm not going back to being that dead man inside." Helen looked from one to the other, defeated for the first time. "You'll regret it," she said, but her voice faltered. "When this ends badly, don't come crying to me." She left with wounded dignity, leaving a heavy silence. "She's right about one thing," Laura said softly. "People will always question, always doubt. Let them doubt." Robert pulled her into his arms. "I know what I feel, I know what I have, and I won't let anyone ruin it." But that night, as Laura looked at Emily sleeping in her princess room, the fear returned. What if Helen was right? What if she really was just a replacement? What if one day Robert woke up and realized he'd made a mistake? She didn't know that in the next room, Robert was awake with the same fears. Fear of not being good enough. Fear of failing them like he'd failed his first family. Fear that his past would always chase any attempt at a future, 2 hearts haunted by different ghosts trying to build something new on old ruins, and unaware that the biggest test was still to come. The next morning, Robert woke up to a phone call. His face paled as he listened. "I understand. Thanks for letting me know," he said, hanging up with trembling hands. Laura entered the kitchen, saw his expression. What happened? He stared at her, his eyes full of a pain she hadn't seen in weeks. "My mom hired a private investigator to look into your past." His voice was tense, and he found something. Laura's blood ran cold. "What, Emily's father? He's alive and wants to meet his daughter." Laura's world collapsed. Laura couldn't hide the truth from Emily for long. The girl was too smart. She sensed the tension in the air like an animal sensing a storm. "Mom, why are you sad?" she asked one morning while having breakfast in the huge kitchen that still seemed like a dream to Laura. Robert was there too, having coffee with them as he did every day. The 3 exchanged looks, and he nodded encouragingly. "Em, sit here next to me," Laura said, pulling the chair. "I need to tell you something important." Emily sat, her blue eyes wide with curiosity and a bit of fear. "You know your dad, your biological dad, left before you were born, right?" "I know. He wasn't ready to be a dad." Emily repeated the words she'd heard her whole life. "But it's okay. Now I have Robert." Laura's heart tightened. "That's what it's about, love. Your biological dad, he's back. He wants to meet you." The silence that fell was heavy. Emily looked from Laura to Robert, confused. "But I don't know him. I know my love. That's why he wants to meet you now. Does he know my name? Know I like drawing? Know my favorite color is pink?" Laura shook her head, tears threatening to fall. "No, sweetie. He doesn't know those things." Emily was quiet for a long moment, her 7-year-old mind processing information too complex for her age. "Robert knows," she said finally, turning to him. "You know everything about me." "I do," Robert replied, his voice choked. "I know you like pancakes with honey, that you're afraid of the dark, but pretend you're not, that when you're nervous you twist a lock of hair around your finger. I know everything, little one. So you're my real dad. It wasn't a question, it was a statement. The other man is just someone who helped make me, but you're the one who chose to stay." Laura sobbed, pulling her daughter into a tight hug. "You don't have to decide now, love. You can think about it calmly. I already thought about it." Emily pulled away, wiping her mom's tears with her little hands. "I don't want to meet him. I already have a dad. I want to stay with you two." Robert stood and hugged them both. and there in the sunny kitchen the three cried and laughed at the same time. Derek's lawyer didn't like the answer. The girl is too young to decide that, he argued in a tense meeting at the law office. The judge will consider she was influenced. Influenced, Laura's lawyer, a serious man named Dr. Henry, countered. The child simply knows who was present in her life and who wasn't. My client has the right. Your client abandoned a pregnant teenager. Dr. Henry interrupted. Didn't pay a cent of child support in 7 years, didn't register. The child made no contact, and now, conveniently, when the mother is with a rich man, he shows up wanting rights. Derek turned red. It's not about money. Then, what is it about Robert? Asked, his voice icy. Because from where I see it, you had 7 years to look for your daughter, 7 years to man up and take responsibility. And you did nothing. I didn't know where they were. You could have searched. Laura spoke for the first time, her voice firm. You knew my full name, knew my mom's name. If you really wanted, you'd have found us. But you didn't want to until now. The awkward silence was broken by Dr. Henry. I have here. He placed an envelope on the table, Emily's statement made with psychological accompaniment expressing her desire not to meet the biological father at this time. I also have Mr. Villa's adoption request, which the child enthusiastically approves. Adoption! Derek went livid. You're not even married. Not yet, Robert said, but we will be in 2 weeks. Laura looked at him surprised. They had talked about it, but he hadn't mentioned a date. And even if we weren't, Robert continued, I have more moral right to that girl than you'll ever have because I chose her. Every day I choose to be present. Derek looked at his lawyer defeated. So that's it? I lost. You never had it, Laura said softly, almost with pity. Because to lose you'd need to have had something before, and you never wanted to have it. Derek left dejected, his dreams of redemption shattered by the raw truth of his own choices. His lawyer murmured something about dropping the case. Outside in the hallway, Laura leaned against the wall, her legs shaky. Is it over? She asked, almost unbelieving. Over, Dr. Henry confirmed. He'll formally drop it by tomorrow and we can start the adoption process immediately after the wedding. Wedding, in 2 weeks. Laura looked at Robert. Were you planning this without telling me I was going to ask you tonight? He admitted, running his hand through his hair. Had everything prepared romantic dinner ring Emily was going to help, but I ruined the surprise. Laura laughed through tears. Idiot, you can't announce a wedding in the middle of a lawyer meeting. Technically I can, I just did. He smiled, then got serious. But the question still stands. Will you marry me, Laura? For real? Not just for the adoption, but because I love you and want to spend the rest of my life with you and Emily. Yes, she whispered. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. He kissed her right there in the law office hallway while Dr. Henry pretended to be very busy with his papers. Helen Villa found out about the wedding through social media. She showed up at the mansion the next morning even more furious. You're not doing this, she said to Robert, invading his office. Marry a housekeeper. Adopt her daughter. You've gone completely crazy. No, Mom. For the first time in years, I'm completely sane. Robert didn't stand up, didn't get intimidated. And you'll have to accept it or stay out of my life. I'm your mother and I'm an adult man making my own choices. He finally stood facing her. You had your time controlling my life, chose my wife, my career, where I lived, how I lived, and where did that get me to an unhappy marriage and an empty life? Camilla was perfect for you. Camilla was perfect for you, for your world of appearances and status. Robert's voice was loaded with years of resentment. I loved her, yes, but our marriage was a golden prison and you know it. Helen recoiled as if slapped. Camilla loved you, and I loved her. But love wasn't enough when we lived trying to please everyone but ourselves. He sighed. Mom, I'm not going to stay stuck in the past forever. Isabella and Camilla are gone, and it hurts. It hurts every damn day. But Laura and Emily gave me a reason to go on, gave me life again. That woman only wants your money. That woman, Laura said from the door where she'd heard everything. Turned down your money when you offered it? Turned down $500,000. Because I'm not here for interest. I'm here because I love your son. Helen turned surprised. I've worked my whole life since 17 to support my daughter. Laura continued entering the office. Never asked for anything from anyone. Never expected a rich man to save me. And when I met Robert, I didn't know he was going to change my life. I just knew my daughter saw a lonely man and wanted to keep him company. A manipulative child. Careful, Robert warned dangerously. Be very careful what you say about Emily. Helen looked from one to the other and for the first time seemed to really see what was in front of her. Two adults in love defending their family tooth and nail. You really love each other, she murmured more to herself. It's not a scheme, not interest, it's real. It always was, Robert said. Helen was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was different, tired, defeated, but also maybe a little relieved. I just didn't want you to suffer again. After losing Isabella and Camilla, you were so destroyed. I was afraid anything new would hurt you more. So you decided I should stay alone forever. I decided you should be safe. Unexpected tears shone in Helen's eyes, and I was wrong. I tried to protect you so much I almost lost you for good. Mom let me finish. She took a deep breath. I don't like this situation. Don't like that it happened so fast that you barely know this woman. But she looked at Laura. Bud, I see you're a good mom. I see your daughter is polite, sweet. And I see my son smiling again. That has to count for something. Mrs. Villa Helen call me Helen. She sighed. If I'm going to have a daughter-in-law, better start right, or at least try. It wasn't a warm hug, not full acceptance, but it was a start, and sometimes starts were enough. The wedding happened 2 weeks later. Small and intimate, just close family and friends. Beatrice was maid of honor. Emily was flower girl wearing a pink dress she chose herself, throwing petals with excessive enthusiasm. Helen was there, stiff but present, nodding politely to Laura. When Robert saw the bride enter a simple white dress, hair loose, nervous smile, he cried. Cried for the second chance life had given him for the family he never imagined having again. You look beautiful, he whispered when she reached the improvised altar in the yard. You too, she replied, laughing through her own tears. The vows were simple but devastating. Laura, Robert began, holding her hands. You came into my life when I was just an empty shell. I worked, breathed, but didn't live. And then your daughter asked if she could have coffee with me. He smiled at Emily, who watched with shining eyes. And everything changed. You taught me it's possible to start over, possible to love again. That family isn't just blood, it's choice. And I choose you every day for the rest of my life. I choose you. Laura could barely speak through tears. Robert, I spent so much time just surviving, working, taking care of Emily, no time to dream. And then you appeared and reminded me I'm more than a mom, more than a worker. I'm a woman who deserves love, who deserves to be happy. You gave me that, and in return, I give you all I am. My heart, my loyalty, and my family forever. When the justice of the peace declared them husband and wife, Emily shouted, Now we're a real family. And everyone laughed and cried at the same time. 6 months later, the adoption was finalized. Robert officially became Emily's father. The girl cried with happiness when the judge banged the gavel. Now I have the same last name as Daddy, she announced to everyone in the courthouse, without any embarrassment. Emily. Villa sounded perfect. That night, the three had dinner together as they did every night. Emily talked about school, showed drawings, complained about math homework, normal, everyday, precious things. After putting Emily to bed, Robert and Laura stayed in her room for a moment, just watching. Do you think Isabella would approve? Laura asked softly. It was the first time she mentioned Robert's first daughter. He was quiet for a moment. I think so. I think she'd love having a big sister, he smiled sadly. And I think Camilla would approve too. She always wanted me to be happy. Do you still miss them every day? He pulled Laura into his arms. But I learned you can carry the past without living in it. You can honor who we lost without abandoning who we have. Thank you, Laura whispered. For what? For not giving up. For fighting for us. For proving fairy tales can be real. Fairy tales. He laughed softly. We're messier than any fairy tale. Exactly. She kissed him softly. We're real. A year after the day, Emily had first asked, Can I have coffee with you? The three were at the breakfast table again, but now it was different. No tension, no fear. Just a family having breakfast together, planning the day, laughing at inside jokes. Daddy, Emily said. And Robert still got emotional every time he heard that word. Can I bring my friend Sarah to play here tomorrow? Of course you can. How many friends do you want to bring? All of them. She jumped excitedly in her chair. Emily, sit properly, Laura admonished, but was smiling. Robert looked at his wife and daughter, and his heart overflowed with gratitude. Gratitude for a brave girl who saw beyond appearances. Gratitude for a strong woman who accepted loving again. Gratitude for a second chance he never imagined deserving. Hey, he called their attention. I love you both so much. We love you too. They replied in unison, then laughed. And there, on that ordinary Saturday morning, Robert Villa realized he had everything he ever wanted. Not a perfect life, but a real one, full of love-mess laughter and second chances. A life that started with a simple question from a 6-year-old girl. Can I have coffee with you? And the answer had changed everything.